Who is Donald Trump actually going to deport from the United States? In this video, we're going to go through several categories of immigrants who are probably at a heightened risk of deportation, and then we're going to go through some of the policies that Trump had the last time he was president, because the answer to this question might not be what you expect. The number one group of people who are at a risk of being removed from the United States, physically deported, are people who have an old removal order. So these are people who've actually seen an immigration judge and who were ordered removed, which is another way of saying ordered deported from the United States, but who have never actually left the United States. The reason why it's easiest to go after this group of people is because they probably no longer have a right to see an immigration judge unless there's a new claim for asylum or a new fear that arose. And even in that case, they'll probably be detained during the immigration proceedings. So the number one group of people who are at the highest risk of being deported are people who have a removal order. Donald Trump ran on a platform of trying to make America safer again and deporting all of the criminals. But statistically, only a small percentage of immigrants commit serious crimes. Those immigrants are probably at a very high risk of being detained and then ordered deported from the United States. If they've never been in immigration court proceedings before, they might have a right to see an immigration judge, which will clog up the system. So we'll see what happens with that. But if I was Donald Trump, or any president for that matter, I would prioritize the people who've committed serious crimes in the United States, because that will probably have the most net benefit effect on the United States as a whole. Another group of people who are low-hanging fruit and easy for the government to target are people who've overstayed their ESTA or visa waiver program, because these people oftentimes do not have a right to see an immigration judge. When you enter through one of these programs, basically the agreement is you don't have to go to a US consulate to apply for a tourist visa, and in exchange, you can only come here for up to 90 days at a time, and you don't really have a right to see a judge in the event that immigration just wants to deport you. These are people who come here from certain European countries or even Canada. They can easily enter the United States, but they can also easily be deported from the United States if they overstay. So in the past, many presidents haven't tried to target these people, but there's a chance that moving forward, anyone who's overstayed their visa waiver program or ESTA can be targeted by immigration. And now for the part of the video that a lot of people weren't expecting. I have a ton of clients that live in mixed status families. So they might have US citizen children. The actual client might be a permanent resident or lawfully present in the United States, but their spouse is undocumented. And a lot of them have told me that they support Trump's deportation policies, which leaves me puzzled, because they have family members, immediate family members, who would be subject to deportation if Trump did everything that he said he was going to do. But they don't actually believe that Donald Trump is going to deport anyone who's present in the US unlawfully. During Trump's campaign and in his rallies, he constantly prioritizes like criminal immigrants. But he doesn't actually make a massive distinction if you ask him to parse it out in all of his interviews. In his mind, anyone who's unlawfully present in the United States is a criminal immigrant. So when some people hear that, they think that only the immigrant who recently entered and was ordered deported and killed a US citizen or committed some serious crime is the one who's going to get deported. That's false. If Trump's past presidency is any indication of what's going to happen this time, what happened last time was anyone who was present unlawfully in the United States was a priority for deportation. Actually, there were no priorities. It wasn't like criminals are first, and then deportees or people with deportation orders are second, and then everyone else is third. Anyone who was present unlawfully in the US was a priority for removal. And in reality, what that actually did was it clogged up the immigration system, with so many people who've been here for many years. And in fact, he even made it so that if you apply to legalize your status and your application is denied, even for a technicality, let's say you apply for permanent residence based on marriage to a US citizen and you're trying to fix your status. If it gets denied, even for a technicality, you can ordinarily just resubmit the application and fix the deficiency or technicality. Under Trump, that person was placed into deportation proceedings and was the same level of priority as someone who already has committed crimes. This was bad for the entire immigration system. If that happens again, I will not be pleased for several reasons. Number one, the Department of Homeland Security needs to have immigration priorities. When you're in immigration court, the prosecutor, also referred to as like the Department of Homeland Security trial attorney, typically under most administrations has the discretion to close your deportation case if, for example, you've been paying taxes for a long period of time and have substantial ties to the United States, like many US citizen family members, and have no criminal history and overall are generally a positive contribution to the United States. But those prosecutors lost the power to close cases or create priorities during Donald Trump's last administration. So if that happens again, all of my clients or people who said, I want Donald Trump because it's not going to affect my family, he's just going to deport the criminals, they're going to be in for a rude awakening when their spouse or their family members are targeted for immigration enforcement. It is important for our government to be able to decide which immigrants are high priorities for deportation and which ones have been living here for long periods of time and are positively contributing to the United States. When the government loses the ability to do that, the whole immigration system kind of shuts down. The government only in reality has the resources to physically remove fewer than 1% of the immigrants who are unlawfully present in the United States. So if you want to have the most positive impact on the United States, you have to create enforcement priorities. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you're apprehensive or afraid about applying for an immigration benefit, feel free to schedule a consultation. We can go through the risks, and my answer sometimes will be, you know what? There's an 80% chance your case will get approved, but that 20% chance could result in you getting placed into deportation proceedings. So let's go through the pros and cons. Let's see what defenses you might even have available if you're placed into deportation proceedings. And it might be better for you to just end up waiting 4 years before you apply for any immigration benefits. On the flip side, if you have a high chance of getting approved, and in the worst case scenario, you have a really strong defense from deportation, it might be worth it to try to apply for that benefit now. And some people might be at very, very, incredibly low risks of having their case denied, and those cases might be worth filing now. If you have any questions, you can schedule a consultation directly with me. See my information in the video description below. If you're new to my channel, I put out a video on family-based immigration on a weekly basis. I focus on green cards, removal of conditions, and naturalization. This video was a bit of a deviation from the norm, but if you're interested in those topics, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week for another one.